Hello? Hi. Welcome. Welcome to the stream. I'm just putting out the notifications right now because my things are broken. This is fine. And you can hear my voice in the background once again. There we go. There we go. I just gotta do a few things before we start. I'm just trying to put it out on Twitter real fast. So, I'm guessing everyone knows we're playing the Five Nights at Freddy's 6 Pizza Sim. I set it up beforehand this time, so we actually know what, and we don't have to struggle with it the entire time where, you know, setting up. And it's not like 10 minutes like it was last time. There we go, and now it's on Twitter. Nice. Alright. We'll actually start the proper thing now. I already loaded it up, so... Not this one, this one? Is the one we need? Yep. Sorry, I gotta like fix my face. Boom. We're in the game. Do 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 do. Let's just give you a really quick tour. Perfect. I'm just sitting up it so I can see again. I always struggle with only technically having one monitor. There we go. I just want to see it to make sure, you know, my... Oh, I have a sponsorship. I still don't know really what those do. I kind of want to restart the game, but what the hell is that? That's weird. We're just gonna move some stuff around really quick. We need one more thing. What's in this one? Oh. Ooh, nice. Music Man! I love Music Man, he's my favorite. Fails. Is there anything else we can get here? Budget tech, I'm pretty sure we got almost everything for budget tech. Do we have a stage that can fit everyone on it? Sorry, guy. We gotta use it for play tokens. So. Play test. We're playing the ducks. No, we're gonna go back to the classic Lemonade Man. Lemonade Clown. Shit.
Fruit punch for everyone.
This is always like the longest thing to do.
Fruit punch for everyone.
Ow. Doo-doo. Doo-doo-doo-doo. I didn't mean to hit that. Oopsie. Oopsie. That's fine. Oh, it turns out my Discord bot is working. That's surprising, actually. I have to lean back. For some reason, it just doesn't like me, like my little VTuber dude. He doesn't like when I sit where I normally sit. Which is weird, but that's fine. It just gets a little harder to speak clearly into the microphone. Into my mic. That's fine. I don't speak clearly anyways.
Fruit punch for everyone.
I just want to upgrade the floor plan a little bit. I forgot what I was just doing for Punch Clown. Playtest time. Oh, you little bitch.
Fruit punch
in the
for
corner.
everyone.
Doo doo. Doo doo doo. I'm just at this point, I'm trying to hit most of them. It's fine. Doo 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 doo.
Fruit punch for everyone.
Fruit punch bunch for everyone.
Fruit punch for everyone.
Into the night. Oof, my least favorite part. Oh. This is fun. I guess. I think hiring a handyman in the long run is going to be actually very good. Is it not? It's just trying to somewhere. Ugh. Oh God. I don't see any little special friends in our events yet, which is a good thing, hopefully. It just gets really quiet. Which for some reason there's circus baby. Don't like that. Do not like that. That was circus baby, wasn't it? Oh shit. Oh, like nice.
My birthday. Did you have a gift for me?
Game over. Where did she even come from? Did she pop out of my computer? Oh. Do I have to restart? Ugh. Don't make me restart. Bye. Oh. This is not nice. I don't like when we have things in the vent. How did she get over here that fast? That's not nice. Oof. She's a... Is there something I'm supposed to be doing to get her from shopping coming over here? I'm gonna restart our game. You know, you listen to this guy's long, boring spiel again.
It's time to take your career into your own hands. You've saved money.
There we go. I don't like to listen to this guy. Just talk for ages and ages. Let's get started.
Let's see how much cash you had left over after purchasing your franchise package. Great. That should be more than enough. Now let's get started. On your left are your product catalogs. You can unlock more expensive catalogs by simply purchasing items for your pizzeria. Use the arrows in the bottom right of the item window to browse the products for each catalog. When you're finished shopping, click the button labeled Blueprint Mode to place your items. You can switch back and forth between Catalog Mode and Blueprint Mode as often as you like before opening your
Why do we have to
the
listen to
public.
this guy every
When
time?
you're ready to open your restaurant for business for the day, click the button labeled Finished in Blueprint Mode. Give it a try and do some shopping.
Do 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 do. Are we good for now?
Your restaurant is now officially open. Awesome! That doesn't mean your job is finished, however. You have a lot of work to do while patrons eat their pizza in the other room. From your terminal, you have supplies to buy, papers to print, and repairs to make. Once you've taken care of all the items on your to-do list, you can log off for the day and get out of there. Money for supplies and repairs comes out of petty cash, so don't worry about it coming out of your pocket. We've got you covered. The only money you have to worry about is if you choose to upgrade any of the equipment in your office.
Oh, this guy
Now,
feels so
onto other
long.
matters. Something to be aware of is that the ventilation system and your terminal are pretty loud and may prevent you from hearing things in adjoining air vents. That won't be a problem if there is nothing in the vents. However, if you feel that something might be in the vents, you have a few tools at your disposal to protect yourself. You can shut off your terminal and the ventilation system at any time to decrease the amount of attention you are drawing to yourself. Also, shining your light directly into a vent will most likely prevent anything from jumping out. You also have 3 tools available from the terminal itself. There is a motion detector, an audio decoy, and a secondary ventilation unit. Keep in mind, however, that you can only have one of these active at any given time. Now get to it. Simply log off when you've completed your tasks for the day.
I'm almost done and then he just finished talking. Like, he talks for so long, like, Jesus. Go faster, dude. Go faster. Come on. Ugh, fuck, this guy talks forever. I think one of my first things I want to do is I want to get enough money for a maintenance guy and the other things. Why are there no vent covers? Oh yeah. Because we live and work in a shithole. Kids' drawings are cute though. We're almost done. This is good. We like to, you know, not have, you know.
Great job.
Got closer.
It looks like you're getting the hang of
Words
this.
are hard.
Now let's just focus on getting you through your first week.
Words are hard. We like completing the nights without Circus Baby, trying to.
Congratulations on completing your first day. However, your
William
job
Afton.
isn't over just yet.
You job's
There's
an
another
idiot.
aspect
Oh, it's
to
you.
your end-of-day routine, and that is inspecting and salvaging any animatronics found in the alley outside the back door. Things are found here quite often, and while we aren't sure why, what we do know is that they can be used for parts, which can mean a much-needed revenue boost before starting your next day. Of course, as with everything else in this line of work, those benefits come with risk. The safest thing to do is to throw it back outside, but then you get no money for the salvage. Choose to keep it, and you run the risk of certain negative consequences, namely death, should the item in question not be as docile as it first appeared. If you do decide to try to salvage it, then you must complete
I've
the
never really
maintenance
understood how to
checklist.
do this part
During the
properly.
testing phase, check on the animatronic frequently. If you feel that it is becoming unstable, use the taser provided to you. You can use it 3 times without damaging the hardware. Every use over 3, however, will decrease the item's salvage value. Before you is an animatronic found in the back alley. We are unsure of its origins. It is your job to complete the maintenance checklist before claiming it as salvage. Or, if you choose to, you can throw it back into the alley where you found it and forfeit payment. Please make your choice now. You have chosen to proceed with the maintenance checklist. Remember, use your company-issued taser to return the animatronic to a neutral state if you feel that it's becoming unstable or aggressive. You can only use it 3 times before it begins to damage the animatronic and decrease its value. Begin audio prompt in 3, 2, 1.
I don't like this. What if I shock it anyways?
Document results. Begin audio prompt in 3, 2, 1.
What if I shock it anyways?
Document results. Begin audio prompt in 3, 2, 1. Document results. Begin audio prompt in 3.
What if I just shock it again? Just to make sure it doesn't.
Three, 2, 1. Document results. Begin audio prompt in 3, 2, 1. Document results. You have completed the maintenance checklist and may proceed with the salvage. Well done. End tape.
Okay. I think I just fucked up. For some reason, I feel like I fucked up. know what? That looks about right. That didn't work. Oopsie. Oopsie. Hey, we got in. Oops. Oh no! Oops. I'm very good at this game. Oh, and crack. It's a funny noise. Fun as neck just goes crackle. Like Rice Krispies. Snap, crackle, pop. You know what they say. No, I want catalog. I don't know why I keep trying to hit escape to open the catalog. I want a different game. This one. I just want to try and get like enough money so I can get the maintenance man, so we don't have to worry about that when we do the back. Because I have a feeling Funtime Freddy is now gonna try and kill me when I do my thing in the back.
Return to Candy Cadet again, and maybe I will tell you a story.
A story? Ooh. We should listen to the story.
I am a Candy Cadet. Come get your candy here. I have candy all day, every day. Candy, candy, candy. Return to Candy Cadet again, and maybe I will.
I think I have to get over a certain amount of points to be able to. What is it called? Get the story.
Come get your candy here. I have candy all day, every day. Candy, candy, candy. Return to Candy Cadet again, and maybe I will tell you a story.
I don't know how many points though.
I am a Candy Cadet. Come get your candy here. I have candy all day,
Oh,
every day.
the model's glitching out.
Candy,
Oof.
candy. Return to Candy Cadet again, and maybe I will tell you a story.
Maybe I want to hear a story now.
I am a Candy Cadet. Come get your candy here. I have candy all day, every day. Candy, candy, candy. Return to Candy Cadet again. And
Hey, I
maybe
got a
will
good
tell you a
score
story.
on that. I want to hear the story. Scammer, boy. Scammer. This man scamming me for a story. I have 3 tokens left. I just want to get. I just want to hear the story. This man. Man's holding it hostage for me.
Every day. Candy, candy, candy. Return to Candy Cadet again, and maybe I will tell you a story.
Tell me the story now, please. Do I have to wait? Well, let's just wait as long as possible to see if it'll give it to us.
I am a Candy Cadet. Come get your candy here. I have candy all day, every day. Candy, candy, candy. Return to Candy Cadet again, and maybe I will tell you a story.
Oh, this guy's just a little bitch. That's all. Well, looks like we're back to you for
Come
money.
get your candy here. I have candy all day, every day. Candy, candy,
Candy.
Return to Candy Cadet again, and maybe I will tell you a story.
Eh. And I will still have enough for the thing, so. I'm sorry, I get really quiet just during this part. I just want to listen for audio cues. Even though there probably could literally be nothing in the vents right now. Just waiting for this little guy's big version to show up and go get me. I just like moving around the music box every once in a while. Bitch. Bitch. You're a bitch. Why? He was so quiet. It's not fair. Oh. I don't like the scrapped animatronics because they are so quiet in the vents and you can't hear them at all. We got a maintenance man, but he doesn't do anything. That's bullshit. I don't like this. It's too quiet. It's nice, but it's too quiet. Oh. I don't like this. Not one bit. Gotta check the vents. Maybe it's because Funtime Freddy is just so sus, that's why he's in the vents. Hurry up. I don't like this. Oh, thank God, it's done. Yay, we made it through night one. I mean, two. Two? One. Two.
Before you is an animatronic found in the back alley. We are unsure of its origins. It is your job to complete the maintenance checklist.
Spring
before
trap.
claiming
No,
your
I'm not
identity.
dealing with spring trap.
You have chosen to proceed with the maintenance checklist. Remember, you...
Oh. I gotta reopen the game. Oops. Where is it? Just give it a second. There we go. I am smart. Wow. Please don't put me back with them. Dun, dun, dun. Hey. What do we got here? I want to get to the rare finds auction already. But I know that takes a while to unlock. What do we want? What kind of thing would we like?
I am a candy cadet. Come get your candy here. I have candy all day, every day. Candy, candy, candy. Return to Candy Cadet again, and maybe I will tell you a story.
I don't know if you actually tell stories at this point. Upgrade, larger float pan. That's not what I wanted. I also don't get that game either, but it's one of ours, so.
I am a candy cadet. Come get your candy here. I have candy all
Fortnite
day,
battle.
every
What?
day. Candy, candy, candy.
Fortnite battle pass. I do not have a Fortnite battle pass. I
Return
no
to
got the
Candy
game like a
Cadet
normal
again,
person.
and maybe I will tell you a story.
That was weird. I don't know why you came in. But thank you? I don't know. That was
I am a candy cadet. Come
strange.
get your candy here. I have candy all day, every day. Candy, candy, candy.
Let me get this.
Return to Candy Cadet again, and maybe I will
Every
tell you
time.
a story.
Every time you say that, and then you don't tell us a story. That's rude. Tell us a story, Mr. Candy Cadet.
I am a candy cadet.
I'm gonna sit
get
here
your
and waste your
candy here.
time and just
I
not
have
press
candy all
space.
day, every day. Candy, candy, candy.
You know what? We're gonna waste your time. You don't want to tell us a story. You weirdo. Mean. You're
Return to Candy Cadet again, and maybe I will tell you a story.
This man just doesn't know what story he wants to tell us, maybe. Maybe he doesn't even have a story, he's just scamming us.
I am a candy cadet. Come get your candy here. I have candy all day, every day. Candy, candy, candy. Return to Candy Cadet again.
Oh my
Maybe
god.
I will tell you a story.
you could just tell us a story. Might get an actual game we can play and no, we can't get that one. No. It has to be the normal clown. We're just kidding. We already have one weird clown. We need the fruit punch clown here. Self-burn. Our favorite. I don't know, I'll get that and then call it a day. Here comes my least favorite part, actually having to play the game. We have a maintenance man, he doesn't do maintenance. Stupid. Scruff, 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 scruff. I threw you out! I threw you out, you little... Yeah, no shit. Warning. I threw him outside. That wasn't supposed to do that. Oh god. That scared the living shit out of me. I kinda want to do the sponsorship. I will. I will not enjoy it, but I will. And why do we do it, you ask? Because I need money. Because I'm not good at the games. Don't do ball pit areas. There, we got our two favorite things. Or at least my two favorite things. And we'll move Candyman down here. This here. Play tested. Aw. what that does. What? I thought this was a ball pit. Oh. Nice. I really don't get it. Actually doing our favorite thing.
Fruit punch for everyone.
For everyone. And which one was the... Which one was the ball pit? Is this one where you have to wait? Oh, I don't like this. I don't like this. I don't like this because now I know Springtrap's wandering around and something. Please be gone, please be gone, please be gone, please.
That was easier than I thought it would be.
Well, thank you, too. I don't like it. I'm starting to think the music doesn't work on him. But also, the vent will, if you turn it off, it brings him to you faster. But I don't think turning off the terminal will do anything either. So he's just like super OP. Ugh. Well, anyways. To do. Yeah, well, anyways, I'm probably going to get off and raid someone. I just need to do this so I can use my mouse. Who are we raiding? I don't know. Is there anyone you guys want to raid? Where is it? Because I think I have someone that I want to raid. Here, I'm just gonna make sure this is right person really quick. 1 second. Sorry. Yeah, I found who we're raiding. Well, anyways, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next stream. Anyways, thank you so much. Bye-bye!